Good evening, folks. And if it's 6 o'clock on a Wednesday, it's time for Off the Record, the Real Talk podcast with Ali Braswell. I'm Ali Braswell, your host, and so glad to join you here this afternoon for a great conversation that I promise is going to be a defining moment within the series on pivots in life and career. I'm so excited to be back here again with you for episode 4, which is on redefining stability. And the big question is comfort holding you hostage? Is being in your current position because of the income and the accolades and the things that you receive holding you hostage from doing what you really are meant to do in life? That passion project, those things that bring you joy and can also pay you very, very well. I'm so excited to be back here and talk with you and share with you that given the challenges that we face today, we can take a hard look at what we call security. And the key thing is, what if the thing that you think is stable is actually holding you hostage? I'm so excited to share with you that my guest today has gone through this challenge, has navigated this journey, and done such an incredible job in learning how what it means to walk away from your comfort zone and move to create change. And I'm talking about none other than number one best-selling picture book creator on the New York Times best-selling list. His work is known widely. If you watch Wakanda Forever, you got to see his work there as the illustrator in putting together that incredible body of work. If you have seen or experienced the 1619 Project, and you've read that book, he's the award-winning illustrator from that piece of work. But it all started many a year ago when he was still yet a Disney Imagineer, coming from Hampton University into Imagineering, and then going out and doing the Sunday sketches turned into an incredible piece when he put the image of Dr. Martin Luther King inside of a hoodie during the tragic incident of the death of Trayvon Martin. I'm talking about Nikkolas Smith, the artivist. He's going to explain more about what artivism is, but join me in welcoming to Off the Record, Mr. Nikkolas Smith. Hey, Nikkolas, how are you?
Ali, doing great. Thank you for having me.
Oh man, I just couldn't think of a better person, you know. And folks, we go back. See, he got all his wonderful beard working. I got a mustache. I'm trying to stay up with the, and the key thing is, you get a little gray in there, but I got a whole lot of gray from when we first met.
It's coming in. It's coming in. So yeah.
You, and so it's so excited to have you here, Nick and Nikkolas, and be able to share in your journey. Your journey has been incredible. To be able to do the things that you have done, coming from Hampton University. But let's take a moment and let's give people an opportunity to know Nikkolas Smith and share a little bit about your story with them.
Sure. I consider myself an artivist. I'm an artist and an activist. I try to make art that inspires people to make a positive change in the world. Look at the broken bones of the world. It's kind of like that's the core of what I do. Going back to the beginning, I mean, I grew up in Houston, Texas. I was making art all the time. I was never the type of person to say like, "Oh, I want to be an artist when I grow up." I didn't really know what I wanted to do exactly, but I, once it got to the point of like, okay, time to go to college, I went to Hampton University, studied architecture, and that's actually where I found out about imaginations and imagineering, and there's a place that designs theme parks and all these things, and really kind of from there snowballed into the 11-year career doing imagineering, getting to know you, you being one of the first people who like greeted us and showed us, kind of like took us under your wing and became that kind of big brother. And so yeah, just from there, really looking at like just the concept art and design world as a whole, which in a way kind of catapulted me into um, being a full-time artivist. So yeah.
Well, there's an image of you as an Imaginations 2007 finalist, and this incredible piece that you can begin to see his artistic qualities here because they put this together themselves, the team, in projecting who they were, and they're standing in the courtyard over at Burbank Studios for Disney. And in that courtyard are the legends of Disney history. And here you have these four incredible young people out of Hampton University representing and being in a design competition. Just to give you a little background, these are the people who Disney went out and sought after to invite them to compete in the Imaginations design competition for the opportunity to win an internship. And as Nick has already shared with you, Nikkolas was one of those who actually got to go into the internship program and then become an Imagineer for over 15 years. And just, I'm so super proud of him. As a big brother, I can't think of anyone more fitting to talk with me and help you understand this piece that we're talking about when it comes to understanding how to move from your comfort zone into what your calling might be. So Nick, let's jump right in, Nicholas, if you would. You started your career as an architect and an Imagineer. No small feat. And I want you to understand, folks, he went from Hampton to Imagineering. Okay. And from the outside looking in, you already were in the dream job territory. How did you define stability back then? And how has that definition shifted over time?
Yeah, I think, being that that was my first job out of college, that really was the idea of like, this is Disney. This is one of the maybe the biggest entertainment company in the world, and I work there now, and so that like the corporation kind of was that anchor, that stability, and obviously the paycheck that comes with that. And so that was the anchor. It was a dream job. It was designing magical castles and stories and inside the theme park. Um, and so it kind of became that shift of, hey, like this company is the anchor. To eventually I had to look at myself, like what is it that I'm giving to the world, what are my talents, what are my gifts, um and make that the anchor rather than like the corporation.
Well, and I think that's the key is you saw where you were, but what was that turning point that said, Nikkolas Smith, take your tools from where you're doing the Sunday sketch and now move into your passion. And I think, when we were talking, one of the references you used was an anchor where you were into where you moved to. What was that like? And what made you decide to go off and do something bigger and better in entertainment?
Well, I think it was, so I was doing the architecture thing full time, 5 days a week, but then I would go home night to weekend to just make art, and just you know really anything that would come to my mind. But also it became looking at what is happening in the world and making art about important things. And so there was a moment actually in 2013 where there was the Trayvon Martin case. He was murdered. His killer was found not guilty. Actually made some art of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in a hoodie, talking about his dream of not wanting anybody to be judged for their outward appearance. And that was kind of the moment that just sparked everything. Like that was, it was a piece that I just posted just like any other art piece, and then it was shared on, I think Van Jones shared it and it went viral. And then the next day I was on CNN talking about it. And really that became the moment where it's like, okay, like one art piece can transform like how we talk about or see certain things. And, um, you know, people were writing me saying like, oh, I've been looking at black people wearing hoodies in this way all my life, and now it's it's changing from seeing this art piece. And so that was the weekend that the Black Lives Matter movement began. It was a lot was happening, right? And so that was the kind of the moment where like if you're an artist and an activist, you became an artivist like at that time. And so yeah, that was the shift right there, and it kind of it became that from that point to like just continuing like Polendo, Castillo, Alton Sterling, so many moments where even leading up to obviously like Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, so many moments where so many people, black and brown, just disproportionately killed for no other reason than their skin color and the circumstances that they're in and the marginalized situations. And so, just making art about those types of things, important things that we need to talk about.
Yeah, I think when you share that, you move from a structured environment to an independent, purpose-driven environment, and I know that had to come with some concerns, some fears, and some doubts. How was that to wrestle with that and to get to where you took that leap?
Um, I think it was really kind of that thing of like, okay, there's the art that I'm making, and I feel like, is this art something that can change the world? Like, can art do that? Can art be the thing that changes the world? Kind of those questions that we all wrestle. We all have, doubts. When we start to do anything, especially anything creative, like, can this really make a change in the world? That like it has that kind of noble, virtuous core, and can it do that thing? And so that was the question. And then as I started to put it out there into the world, I was getting responses like, yeah, this is actually, the victims of the families were telling me like, this art is important, like it's hanging in our house now. Or this congressman, literally found it on the internet and made a poster, and he's using it on the floor of the house and talking about, police, violence and reform and changing the laws. And so things were starting to pop up where it's like, yes, this actually can do the thing that you wanted to do. So
Well, and I think that's so important because at the same time that you put the hoodie out with Dr. King's image in it, I was actually in the CNN studios talking with them as leading the Urban League doing the trademark, and to be able to turn and see this, and
wow.
they said, "Well, who is Nikkolas Smith?" I'm like, "I know who he is," and I was just blown
Wow.
away that your work was right here being represented in another facet and being shown. And I think that was when everything took off, and for you to choose artivism over architecture probably wasn't the easiest financial decision, but
Yeah.
how did you navigate it? What were the key factors that helped you be able to do it?
I think, well, I mean, to begin, I feel like, and my wife would probably tell you, like, I didn't have anything really economically or business wise set up in the right way. I didn't really have a decent website at all. I was probably selling my art for 10, $15. I don't know. She came along. She had a vision for everything. Shout out Vanessa, you're amazing. Uh, she's literally like the engine behind all of this stuff that's happening. And so, really, she was like, this what you're creating right now. It is artivism, and you should probably update your website, and you should probably, do all of these business things connected to the art. And having that kind of core and that base really helped me to, have the confidence to say like, this, I can do this. This could be a something that is its own thing, its own career, its own like full-time job. So yeah, just it took a little bit, but I feel like my wife was probably the first one to say like, you should probably quit your full-time job and do this. It's getting I can see it getting, big, so yeah.
Well, you know what, and I think hi Vanessa is so good to. I know you watching this from somewhere, and the woman behind the man that we're seeing here, just proud of this whole
Yeah.
thing. folks, this family is someone that I love the term "big brother" because we have been connected for 18 years, and we still talk. And every time he posts something,
Yeah.
I shoot him a note of encouragement, say, "I see you, that I'm here with
Yeah.
you, and I just appreciate all of what you're doing." But when you first took this step, what kind of support or pushback did you experience when you began using your art to directly address racial injustice and social movements and speak truth to power?
I think it was. I feel like it was just being connected to the internet and posting art onto the internet every week for years. It kind of forms this group that's like it is a group that follows with the follows along on the art journey, provides feedback, gives support and encouragement, gives critiques. Even going back to the Trayvon piece, the MLK piece, it was like, there was a lot of encouragement and everything, and then the art also found its way to like Breitbart and Fox News and all these places, and so then I would get hate mail and all of this discouraging stuff, right? Sent comments and things like that, and so it became a thing where it was just like you get a lot from all sides, right? And so you kind of have to take the good with the bad, and you can let it kind of fuel you. You can let it slow you down. You can let it fuel you to something bigger. And so yeah, so it was a lot on both sides, really.
Well, and I think when I look at all this great body of work here, I was trying to pull it up while as you were speaking. You've seen moments in history and captured them beautifully. I remember, it's not in this piece, but it was one of my favorite pieces when you did the piece on the Peter Luongo at the Academy Awards, and then all of a sudden it started appearing everywhere. Tell us about when you saw your work, that feeling you had when Michelle Obama and Kamala Harris and others are beginning to share your work, your artivist.
Yeah, I always say like I try to tell the young artists like don't be afraid to put your art out there. You never know where it's gonna happen. um, it could go anywhere. That's part of the reason why I became a published author illustrator, because I made some artwork of the ladies who won gold medals in 2016, and then it went viral on the internet, and then a Barnes and Noble rep said, "Can you turn this art piece into a picture book in 3 weeks?" And that's how it all started for that, and so many people with monumental platforms just like really connecting with the art, and you just never know how it's going to affect people and how it's going to really inspire them to share it and talk about, hey, how does this art inspire you? How can we use it to you know push forward with this movement, this thing that we're trying to do? So it turned into so many things, and I love that it turned into stories for books where I can talk about like 6-year old Ruby Bridges. Like she writes her story and I can illustrate her story. We can talk about women who won the World Cup. We can talk about the Confederate flag. We can talk about um, you know 400 years ago, the founding of this country, and the terrible time of slavery, and but also my ancestors from Central West Africa. And so there is an endless amount of stories to be told. And I just love that I can like visualize that, especially in the picture book form, where it can be a 3-year old, it can be 100-year-old person, anybody, right? So like, we can all gather around these picture books and tell these stories in that way.
So out of the works that you've done, the Born on the Water, History of We, which is your latest book. And I want to plug right now, folks, shameless plug. If y'all don't have the History of We on your shelves and all of those wonderful collections, this is the time to add them to your library. You can go to his website, nikkolasmith.com. You can go to Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. He's in everywhere. And we just need to support this because, but at the same time, what a pleasure to read and see yourself represented in this imagery. So, out of all of
Thank
them,
you.
Nicholas, what is your favorite? What is your favorite project?
Um, I mean, I used to say it's like a kind of like a tie between the artivist, which is that whole artivist journey, um, in a picture book form, and then Born on the Water, because that's like the dream project, really. And so I feel like now it kind of maybe it's the history of we, my latest one, which is my first hand painted picture book. It is really, you know, looking at the beginning of modern humanity. Everybody in the world can be traced back to this lady who's on the cover of the book. I call her Mawa or Queen Mother. It really is. It was an eye opener for me just researching all of this stuff, looking at the first modern humans 200,000 years ago. They're called modern humans because they have the same skeletal structure as us, same brain capacity as us. Like they laughed and cried as us, spoke sentences with nouns and verbs, and I think I feel like it's never really been talked about in textbooks. Like there was just this 200,000 year gap where I grew up in Texas learning about, like, I don't know, Davy Crockett in the Alamo and stuff like that, and learning about the cradle of civilization 10,000 years ago, and the birthplace of civilization is actually Ethiopia, like 200,000 years ago, and there's so much invention from exploration to medicinal healing to astronomy to all the stuff in Africa before we even left Africa. And so I feel like this book is kind of like that educational justice piece that really doesn't get talked about enough, right? Or at all. And so I think that's why I wanted to make this book. So yeah, check it out. Available everywhere books are sold, and I have a lot of other stuff on Nikkolas.art. So feel free to check all that out. And I just feel like there's so many, like I said, there's so many stories that need to be discussed. And even with the history of we, it's kind of like a National Geographic documentary in picture book form. It is science based. It's been vetted by the Leakey family, who's like the top paleontologist in the world. And so um, a lot of my books, if you might have seen, they're on banned book lists. They've been blocked because one is about Ruby Bridges or the Confederate flag or whatever. And um, I feel like some states they might try to block this book too for no reason, right? But it's like the more and more they try to like cover up history and not talk about the important topics, the more we need to make stories, art, poetry, films, all those things, right? We need to make more creative things about all of the things that they're trying to cover up. So yeah, I think it's vital. We have to do it. So
I think it's so important to use your voice and you use your
thank you.
your canvas and your brush to actually tell the true story, right? And to speak
Yeah.
truth to power. And I think about one of your images that you created that was so powerful during the time when people were talking about the woke movement, and you have this incredible illustration or picture of this young, what I like to think of as little Nick. By the way, my wife is
Mm-hmm.
a huge fan of yours, and she says she sees the little Nick in all of your work. But little Nick standing at that chalkboard in writing, can you share with us a little bit about what were you thinking when you created that piece?
I think that kind of like is in line with the all of the artivism, the everything that is about, like, you know, uncovering, talking about the broken bones, like not shying away from it. The kid is writing names like Robert Smalls right on the chalkboard. There's talk of things like the six grandfathers, which we now know as Mount Rushmore, right? Just uncovering all this types of history, right? And it's literally like being woke, like not falling asleep and not hiding from the important things that will move us forward, right? It's like we need to be aware of these things, right? And so
Yes.
yeah, that was kind of like, another one of those ways to like encapsulate all of the artivism into one piece. Like this is what it's about. Like this is at the core. This is the point of it all, right? So,
Well, and that's where I think when you think about your body of work and what and our topic here, which is how to move from stability into another realm of stability or where you're in your passion zone.
yeah.
What have you learned about yourself as you walked away from comfortable work to pursue your transformational impact?
I think. Well, I so one thing is my passion. It took me a while to realize, hey, my passion is art. That's what maybe I should be doing that full time. But at the same time, I think my passion is aligned with my purpose, and that's very important for what I do. And I don't know if everybody can necessarily say that. I don't know if that's like a mandatory thing to get to, right? But I love that it syncs up for me in my life, just like the passion of concept art and creating and illustrating. Like I've found a way that actually my purpose of like trying to make the world a better place and get people on board with fixing things and contacting their district attorney and signing this petition and doing all these things. I can do that with my art. So it is like the passion and the purpose put together. So that was, I think it was very important to understand about who I am and how I can, really just like go about like the rest of my life, the rest of my career, with that mission and doing it in that way. So
So for anyone who is afraid to leave, what's safe because the paychecks coming in, no issues, no challenges. What would you say to them to encourage them to make that leap or to begin to explore it and the steps that you took?
um, I would ask you like what plans have you put in place in terms of the practice of the work? Like what work have you been doing? Have you been studying? Like I say, like to the young creatives, like emulate the greats. Like have you been looking at who do you feel like is the best in your field, whatever your field is creatively? Usually I talk about creatively, like who is the greatest of all time, who's the goat of that thing, and how did they get to that point, and what kind of work were they making, and just trying to figure out like if you can like lay out a game plan, or hopefully you've already started that. Maybe it's even like a practice. Like for me, it was the Sunday sketches once a week. Just make art once a week, post it. Um, what is that? What is that game plan that you've been laying out? And I think that's one of the biggest kind of kickstarters to getting to the point where you're like, all right, I'm ready to jump into the thing, and I'm confident. I feel like I can do this. But you gotta put in the work first, right? So,
So, you're an artivist. Your work has been featured in Time Magazine. You are on programs, traveling, speaking, talking, things that little Nick may never have thought, or maybe he did envision that he wanted to do.
yeah,
How do you stay humble and so down to earth? Because I think that's what over the years that I have been so impressed with is you just remain you. How do you do that?
yeah. I think for me, it's all about going back to the beginning of how this whole kind of like Sunday sketch artivism journey started, which is go back to the people, go back to, honestly, like the marginalized, the victimized, who is you know connected to these broken bones. There's countless stories. If you turn on the news, there's a lot of stuff happening, right? And so there's a lot that is, there's still a ton of activists posting information, statistics, all these things. They're usually all, almost always, all connected to a person who's affected by that racism or that capitalism or greed or whatever it is, right? So trying to figure out like how I can get back to the people who are affected, and that kind of grounds everything, and it keeps me motivated to make more art and more artivism, and yeah, just going from there.
You know, it's been powerful to watch you over the last 17, 18 years. Didn't know till I actually saw that photo that you brought up.
Yeah.
So from this beginning to this incredible journey to where you would create a piece that brings and blends together who you are. Before we close, could you share just a little bit about this piece that folks, if you go to Disneyland and you go and see the resort, this piece is going to be there. Can you share a little bit about this before we close our session?
For sure, that was really a full circle moment right here. I had, I was contacted by my former architecture employees at Imagineering, who I was in architecture for 11 years, and now that I'm freelance and doing my own thing, they kind of reached back and were like, "Hey, can we pull you in for one more project?" And it was this designing kind of this focal point tower for the new downtown Disney area in Anaheim. And really, it is a commemoration to. It's called Legacy Tower. It's a commemoration to um, these five black architects from the 1950s and 60s, and Paul Revere Williams, Garrett, Seeley, Kennard, some of the best who they never really got credit for the work that they did, and they got half the pay for twice the amount of work, and so you'll see like a half doorway. And you'll see all of their patterns in, I kind of like broke down all of their designs and made a pattern language that flows up the tower. So as you're going by, you might see a cool tower. But if you ask a cast member about it, you might learn about like this actual rich history. So it really is, in a way, it's like an artivist piece. Like it's something that is connected to a history that needs to be talked about that didn't get talked about historically, and I love that it's there, as a kind of like this piece that is a focal point for the new land. So very excited about Legacy Tower.
Well, Nick, I know we could talk on for forever, and I know you got things to do, and I'm just so thankful for the gift of your time, your talent, and your treasure that you share with me and my guests here on the Off the Record, the Real Talk podcast. And as we reflect on this, any parting words that you would like to share from Nikkolas Smith, artivist, the illustrator. I'm gonna call him my little brother, or I would call you nephew, but we're gonna say brother because of our closeness. But what would you share with others that are looking on how to make those pivots and move to the next level and embrace their passion?
Well, first, I just want to say thank you, Ali, for being that kind of guide all those years ago, and you've helped propel so many folks, not just me, into looking at what our vision is, what our future could be. So thank you for that, and I'm just honored to be able to make art, for a living, and I would encourage young folks to just like really look at, again, what is that passion, and can you tie that passion to a purpose that is bigger than yourself. And it's just interesting, like in this moment that we're in right now, with there's so much confusion and division and racism and all these things. I'm literally, coming out with the book in September called Change is Gonna Come, written by Sam Cooke, the legendary Sam Cooke. And I'm illustrating moments of segregation and, leading up to the Civil Rights Act. And it's just wild to see how many parallels there are today, with, laws being rolled back to the 1960s. And so it's a constant struggle. It's something that we always need to, be vigilant and really try to figure out how we can creatively push back on all of these huge monumental issues that are plaguing our society today. And so I would encourage everyone to just, find that thing. What is that broken bone in the world that you want to fix, and how can you creatively solve that problem? So,
There you have it, folks. Nikkolas Smith, artivist, Illustrator, just an incredible young man. So proud to have our connection. I look
Thank
forward to
you.
it. You know, wherever you are in life and you're prioritizing comfort over your calling, what I would ask is that what would it look like if you choose courage instead and decided to step out like Nick? As you think about that, as we close out this series on pivoting and changes will come. But if we plan and we execute and we follow our passion, you know, our dreams are endless. Achieving them are possible. And you can reach out and touch them. Nikkolas, thank you so much for joining us. Folks,
Thank
don't
you.
forget to tune in again next Wednesday at 6 p.m. because if it's 6 p.m. on a Wednesday, it's Off the Record, the Real Talk podcast with Ali. We'll be moving into relationships next, talking about, for example, how this relationship started years ago and has grown into what it is today. Thank you so much for joining us. Look forward to seeing you again on Off the Record, the Real Talk podcast.